The American Vitagraph Company was founded in 1896 by Englishman Alfred E. Smith and newspaper cartoonist J. Stuart Blackton. This company and these men would create an industry of film production and distribution that would become the blueprint for all that followed and would go relatively unchanged until the end of the studio system in the 1950s. The Vitagraph story is difficult to tell due to inconsistent accounts, contradictions, and fabrications, even by Smith and Blackton. Blackton stated that the beginning of their venture was when he was asked to interview Thomas Edison for World magazine.
He went to Edison because he was a newspaper cartoonist. And he went out to the Edison studio to interview Edison and do a drawing of him for the newspaper. But Edison sort of liked him, and he and Edison kind of hit it off, and then Edison showed him around the studio. And Blackton was very much taken with the possibility of cinema.
Blackton asked Edison if he could purchase one of his Edison projecting kinetoscopes, for which it was purported that he paid $100. Years later, Smith would contradict this and say that he built one instead. They presented showings of events from the Spanish-American War and the battle at Santiago Bay. Most were fake, using footage of reenactments shot at the studio. Using the projector to show films at vaudeville shows and other venues would only mean that their next step would be to start making films of their own. Vitagraph's first studio was located on the rooftop of this building on Nassau Street in Manhattan, now known as the Morse Building. It was here that on May 16, 1897, they would shoot their first film, a 60-second short entitled The Burglar on the Roof, with Smith operating the camera and Blackton playing the burglar. Little did they know they were creating the art of film. In 1905, the partners were so successful, they purchased land in Brooklyn. The American Vitagraph Company was the first modern motion picture production company in the U.S. The studio was located at the corner of East 14th Street and Locust Avenue. Writer Kevin Lewis stated, "The facility is roughly comparable to Henry Ford's revolutionizing of the auto industry with the assembly line." Vitagraph boasted the first glass-enclosed studio, a tank for battle and sea scenes, lavish sets, design and costume shops, business offices, and editing rooms. Vitagraph's film productions and innovations are just as impressive. In 1906, the studio released Humorous Phases of Funny Faces, featuring Vitagraph owner J. Stuart Blackton drawing on a blackboard, animating characters with stop-motion animation, making the film the first cartoon made in the U.S.
I think by 1907, they were doing everything. And they did Shakespeare adaptations, they did, opera stories like Francesca de Rimini. I know they did things like that. I mean, I think they were just looking for stories and doing everything.
In addition, the Vitagraph Company produced historical films, which featured literary classics such as A Tale of Two Cities, as well as religious epics, including The Life of Moses, that many claim is the first full-length motion picture made in the U.S. Vitagraph proved that audiences were willing to sit through a film more than one reel in length. The studio was responsible for launching the careers of legendary actors and actresses, including Mabel Normand, John Bunny, Bronco Billy Anderson, Wallace Reed, and Norma Talmadge. Today, the last remaining remnant of the studio is the legendary Vitagraph smokestack that has towered over Flatbush for more than 100 years. For decades, the Vitagraph Studio has been the Shulamith School for Girls. In 2014, the school and the last studio remnants were demolished, except the smokestack. Hampshire Properties purchased the land and built a new apartment complex on the site. Realizing the historical significance of the site, Hampshire Properties decided not only to keep the smokestack, but also repair it and pay homage to Brooklyn's early days of filmmaking by naming the apartments the Vitagraph. This historic icon of early film and the last witness to the birth of an art form survives and lives on. To mainly start the show, let me just introduce, for those of you who don't know, okay, so first we've got Sam Gill, film historian, board member of the Niles S&A Silent Film Museum. Am I distorted? Do you hear that? Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Formerly an archivist with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. And of course, he is the co-author of, co-author with Calton LaHue of Clown Princes and Court Jesters. And then we've got Steve Massa, co-host of the weekly live stream Silent Comedy Watch Party. And as many that's already watching know his books and have his books of Rediscovering Roscoe's, his newest book, Lame Brains and Lunatics and Slapstick Divas. So welcome and thank you guys for joining us for this.
Sure.
So to start, we're talking about Vitagraph, and want to thank Niles too, and tomorrow also to give the Silent Comedy Watch Party. You're going to show a bunny film tomorrow.
Yes, we're going to show Bunny's Dilemma, 1913.
Bunny's Dilemma will be on at 3:00.
Thanks to you, Tony.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, you and Ben Modell will be showing that.
We'll be showing that, and we'll also be showing Yes, Yes, Nanette, which is a one-reeler that stars Jimmy Finlayson. And then we're showing The Boat with Buster Keaton. So those are the three that we have tomorrow. But, you know, Bunny's sort of our special guest. We did show one Bunny before. We showed Tangled Tangoists, which was one of my favorites. So we showed that before. So.
And what time tomorrow?
3:00 Eastern time.
All right, thank you.
So out where you are, Sam, I guess that's noon in California.
Yeah, I believe 3 hours different.
Yeah, so it's 3 a.m. New York time tomorrow.
Oh, great.
And also my John Bunny documentary is available to view on the Niles Film website for the next few weeks. So it's already had 100 views today since it was posted last night. So that's great that it's been viewed that many times. So let's, I'm trying to get these comments here, and I'm trying to see if we're having any other technical problems yelled at me.
I am getting some kind of an odd static
I
sound.
am too. I'm getting that also. So I don't know where that's coming from. It's happening occasionally, but
Okay, so we're going to talk about Brooklyn Vitagraph specifically. And you want to talk a little bit, Steve, about about Smith and Blackton from England and coming here, and
Sure. Well, they were both born in England, and Smith was a magician, and Blackton was an artist. And they teamed up with, what was his name? The third guy.
Ronald Reader.
Yes, Ronald Reader. And they had this combination, and they performed together. And Reader was a magician as well. And they kind of joined forces together and toured around. And, eventually Blackton was doing newspaper cartooning as well. So they got attracted to the early motion picture industry. Blackton famously went out to meet Edison at the Edison studio, and he did a sketch of Edison, and Edison filmed him doing a sketch. And he and Edison kind of hit it off, and he may have bought a camera from Edison. It's not definite. He says he did, but then Smith said he built a camera. So it's a little bit up on the air exactly how they got started. But
and it's important to say that they really didn't start. This was not a filmmaking venture. This was just something to go along with their show.
Yeah, to go along
initially.
Yeah,
and they really just kind of got involved in it because they could act. They could act in their own stuff and their own things too. So,
Blackton did quite a bit.
I keep running into that static too, and I don't know where it's coming from. So, anyway, they started here in the Morse Building. They opened up an office in the late 1890s, and this is where they filmed. They opened up they had like a commercial and advertising office that they started. And they were duping a lot of movies, and they were, it's a whole thing with Edison and everything that they were going through on that. I think everybody was stealing other people's films, and it was really all pretty much the Wild West of film, what was going on. Here is just the, let me take us off here, and I'll start. We won't have a problem with this film because it's a silent film. The Burglar on the Roof. This is the first film that they made on top of the Morse Building.
So this was on the roof.
This was on the roof, Burglar on the Roof, 1898. And Smith is on the filming, and that's Blackton as the burglar. It lasts about 30 seconds. And that is the end of it. That is all. that is the film. So,
pretty good for 30 seconds, I think.
For 30 seconds. Right? So they went on, and I don't know where that is coming from. Then they met the guy that would really change their future, which is pop rock, William T. Rock. And he was the one that really had the maturity and the dollars to help them open up the big studio. You want to say anything about him, Steve? Or
he was kind of a promoter. I think it's Blackton's daughter saying he was kind of a flashy kind of promoter kind of thing, whereas Blackton and Smith were much more low-key. But I think they made a good team, because of their different, temperaments and their different facilities.
Yeah, he liked to wear diamonds. They said he was.
Yeah.
And he was rough and outspoken. He was pretty.
Yeah, and he also very colorful language.
Yeah.
Everything was an expletive all the time, whereas Blackton and Smith were not at all. So he was much more of an extrovert, of the three.
I've read some things where he was very loud to Blackton too, where he was, you know, very, very rough with him. So they start the, they keep doing films. There's a whole lot of this. Works in between time with the patents and everything in Edison. But finally I'll get this started here. In 1905, they break ground at the, in Brooklyn on,
Right.
And this is the very first, and again, it grows over time. They initially start with this building and the Vitagraph Company, and then you can see it again over here in the left corner is another view of it.
Mm.
You see it in the very back over here is another picture. And this will change here in a second. Now here is, this is circa 1913. We're jumping forward a little bit just to show you scenes. This is a Vitagraph romance, and this is a Vitagraph film that actually takes place in the studio. And we get to see the cameraman just cranking there without looking at anything. If you guys want to talk about these actors here, feel free to.
Well, there's Clara Kimball Young in the middle, you know, in the standing by the camera. And it had James Morrison with her, I think, right? The young guy.
Right here, yeah.
To her right. Before, the older actor in the straw hat who's kind of disappeared was William Shea, he was with the studio pretty early and stayed quite a long time.
Okay, here's in the office. Here's, I don't know where that distortion is coming from. Here's J. Stuart Blackton here. Now, Pop Rock was the president, and Smith was the treasurer. Blackton was the secretary. That was their titles. Although Smith and Blackton, that's all you hear about today, really.
Yeah.
But here is, you don't see footage like this. Now, here's the outside of the studio around this time. And car pulling up.
Oh, and this is Edward Kimball, who was Clara Kimball Young's real father, who was an actor.
And I stopped this point right here. This was the first entrance to Vitagraph here, and I just did a freeze frame there to show there. And this is another shot of Huey Mack going in the same. Although it has, this was 3 or 4 years later, they took the plaque off. So here, this is later on in the film where they're showing the extras and everything.
And you see the glass studio in the back here.
Yeah. Oh, and this is courtesy of Film Museum. I mean, the Netherlands.
Film Museum.
Yeah. I forgot to mention them for allowing us to show this film.
Well, Tony, when you and I were out there about 5 years ago, this gray brick building was still there. Some of that was still there.
Yeah, we're going to show film of us there. That's coming up here.
Here's the three.
There they are.
Okay, here's the three right here. There's Pop Rock and Albert Smith in the center, and Blackton. Acting in their own film.
Acting as themselves.
Acting as themselves, yeah. Now, we can say, though, whenever they first started making movies in the very beginning, they said that Smith and Blackton they both directed, and they had kind of a friendly rivalry on the films they made. Smith made his films and Blackton made his films, but I don't think Smith made them very long. I think Smith got out of it pretty soon because Blackton was the one that was really the creative.
Yeah, Smiths tend to be more business as it boiled down once they've really grown.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way that Marion Blackton Trimble characterized them, was that she said her father was really the more creative and artistic, and Smith more the business and treasurer part.
And here's another shot. There's Florence Turner
Getting ready to come in.
right
Yeah,
there.
there she is. One of the first big stars from Vitagraph. She and Maurice Costello, really.
And here's your elephant, Steve.
Oh yes.
This is the court. This is the yard here, and you'll see what Steve and I will be in this area here whenever we show the film. But there's elephants going on and everything.
Well, it's interesting. They did for a period 1911 and 1912. They did a bunch of films with elephants that they had gotten from a troupe that appeared at the New York Hippodrome, Powers Elephants. And they, it's a novelty because Selig was making a bunch of jungle films and things with animals. So I guess Vitagraph decided to get into it too.
So, and this is just some other shots inside the studio. And let's see what else I have on here. Some of these I made into a film. It was easier than having to flick through pictures
There's some property
and
shot.
here's a really nice shot of Blackton giving a studio tour outside the building here. Back on the I'm going to go back real quick and show the this is the opposite side of the other picture that I showed. And then after this, they pretty much they added this brick wall around it. This is like 1911, and there's the smokestack.
Which is still there.
Which is still there.
Which is the only thing that's still there.
Which is the only thing that's still there. And if you could watch my little documentary that I updated, that you couldn't hear. This is supposed to be a shot from 1907 here. I'm not for sure what film that is, but this is a very early shot. Here's other shots of inside Vitagraph, the filming, painting, everything. They said
the joining room.
I'm sorry?
Well, the joining room where they edited.
The joining room.
Yeah, where they edited, but they joined the film together, and it was mostly women working.
Yeah, you can see the one male supervisor there.
Yeah, but
he looks
the women are doing the actual work.
Going out for a big scene. Now here, they said that all the extras would be here at the bottom, and like if they were, and here's the glass studios here, and can you hear that distortion? They said that if like they needed an extra, somebody would poke their head out of the one of these windows here and call down somebody for them to come up if needed for us.
So they kept them all out in the courtyard.
Like out in the courtyard, yeah. In the courtyard like that. And here's
like Universal had a bullpen, they called it, where they kept everybody, and the assistant directors would run out and say, I need 5 people, 5 pirates to be in this film or something.
All right. I'm just going through the 36 questions that I got about no sound on the documentary
No.
at 8:01. So
well,
I'm sorry about that.
It's about silent film.
It's about silent film anyway. Yeah. So a couple of other shots here real quick. This was we'll get on to our visit there. I'll show that here shortly. Here's Exhibitors Day. This is when they had the exhibitors come in and look at the studio, and they showed them how films were made. And this is another shot of it too. And you can see this is from 1913. So let's jump over to when Steve and I, and also my daughter was there. And I'll pull this video up here, running the show. Can anybody hear? Can anybody hear audio on this? Can you guys hear audio on it?
No.
There's not any audio. There's not really any. There's some. So here's the brick, right? There's the brick we're talking about, Steve.
Yeah.
This brick right here.
Yep.
And I'm going to show a clip from Man from Egypt that'll have this where they're on the roof here. And there's the smokestack. Can you guys hear any of the volume from the film?
No.
No.
Well, I have not yet mastered the Zoom showing a film using the audio.
Oh.
So here we are on the roof here. On this very, very, very soft roof. And this is, I don't guess you can hear this, can you?
No, unfortunately. When I first saw this footage, I thought, boy, we could have lost two wonderful film historians with that saggy roof. I tell you, it was scary to me.
Yeah, here's, yeah. It's Steve in a silent movie. We just have to read his lips, and there's more shots of the smokestack there. But here is a great. This has now some of these shots look like they were slightly different from the roof that we were on, but this is again courtesy of iMuseum. This is Huey Mack, directed by Larry Seaman. No music on this, so. And they're getting ready to go up on the roof now.
That's at the studio, I think.
Yeah, this is at the studio. Now there's one shot that I think they went back and forth because some of it was shot at the studio. That looks like the studio, but then one looks like a building that was more in a.
Yeah, isn't there a clock tower or something you kind of see? Yeah, this is.
Yeah, but it looks. I don't know why that irised in like that. Do you?
There might have been footage, unusable footage that they did that effect.
Yeah. But you're going to see whenever they do this. Someone said, Steve, you might have some echo on your speakers. If you've got a microphone turned up, you might want to turn it down.
Yeah, I tried to turn it down.
And here is...
It's interesting to see that acrobatic, that guy that did that forward somersault, you know, all of a sudden now they started to have some pretty great acrobatic comedy.
Now this clock, that looks like a... Now there's that Vitagraph right there. There's the
Yeah.
brick. There's where they filmed this, these wonderful... And here's another leap. There at the...
Oh, I think, isn't the girl Patsy DeForest? Is she the... I can't remember.
She was in most of those early Ewing Rack.
Yeah, that Seaman directed, right.
Uh-huh.
I think it's her.
Very, very rare footage.
Someone was asking, because if we showed the rest of the documentary, what happened? Yes, they did tear the building, the girls' school, everything's tore down. But they did decide to keep the Hampshire Properties bought the land, and somebody was asking the question, what happened to the studio? Yeah, all the buildings are gone now, but they named the apartments the Vitagraph. So I think that's a nice tribute. At least
That's nice.
it's
Yeah.
remembered somehow, and they kept the smokestack. They repaired it.
Incidentally, Huey Mack was born in Brooklyn. His real name was Hugh McGowan. But as many Vitagraph people were Brooklyn born, we can talk more about that later.
Well, he was an undertaker, wasn't he?
Well, that's what they claim.
Yeah, they say he was an undertaker, but then he started doing amateur performances like at Smokers and things like that. And somebody, Blackton or somebody saw him, you know, at one of those smokers. Oh, yeah.
And here's the shot of Steve waiting for his $5 from Huey Mack.
Yeah, Huey Mack owed me $5, so I was waiting for him to come out of the studio.
Now that's the original.
Get a kiss from Florence Turner.
Right. That's that original brick there that you'd see. This is just some still shots. There's Steve at this place. There's Steve and I.
Yeah, it's all gone now.
I'm so glad you did that.
It's gone. But here is the, over here, this is where they had a lot of the automobiles and the wardrobe departments. Yeah, it was pretty, it was not a safe place there at the end. So
No.
it needed to come down here. As you can see. And I tried to get as many shots. And here's the demolished. This is in the documentary too. This is when they're tearing it all down. And there's the comparison shot from the courtyard. The studio, the roof, the glass roof studios, those were right here, where the smokestack is. Let's see. Then next on our list, we talked about, whenever they did that construction, whenever they started, they had dynamos in the basement and they had huge studios. And they even opened up their Paris offices in 1907. So this got big really fast.
It was, what's his name, Reeder, who was in Europe, right?
Yeah, Reeder, they sent him. So they always kept him employed. In 1911, they had 6 buildings with 4 large studios, and they employed 200 people, 8 directors, and 12 cameramen. And that was in 1911.
Wow.
Let me, keeping somewhat on the list, we're going to talk about Bunny here in a second, but this looks like this goes more. I wanted to show this quickly. Sam Speed, Sam Mack was their marketing and publicity guy. And he was really, I think he was instrumental in a lot of this, a lot of the popularity. And I want to thank eMovie Posters, Bruce Hershenson at eMovie Posters, because they found these 1907. This is The Mill Girl. Have you seen this movie? Eileen Bowser wrote about it. But anyway, this is supposed to have Florence Lawrence in it. Not Florence Turner, but Florence Lawrence first. And
well, I mean, the story was that Griffith wanted Florence Turner, so he sent somebody out to try and get her, and they missed Florence Turner, but the person then sort of interested Florence Lawrence, and she ended up going to...
Well, this looks kind of more like Florence Turner, though, right here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look like Florence Lawrence, really.
Eileen Bowser wrote about this film. It exists someplace. I'm not for sure where it does. But this looks more like Florence Turner, but she didn't say anything about who was in it.
Yeah.
But this is really a rare, for 1907, for them to have a poster like this.
Yeah, nice.
And also, I don't know about printing during that time, but to have actual photos from the film on the poster, which Vitagraph did. And then like after 1915, they changed to like just artwork, just paintings. Here's another one here, Laughing Gas. I can send these to you guys later if you want, if you think you can identify anybody in these, since there's so many scenes. I don't know if this film exists or not. I just found these a couple of days ago, so I haven't been able to check them out. But
Oh, they've got great little photos.
yeah, he sent me large enough versions of them that you can really see the people. You know, you might be able to identify some people in them. But Florence Lawrence is credited for the Mill Girl on that. And here's another. This is an English poster. This is still early in that time. And Vitagraph had all these beautiful color posters. You know, they were really, really attractive and showed scenes from the film. And
Oh, nice. Sydney.
you know, we'll go over these stars here and things like that. But anyway, I just wanted to show that. Now let's go. Then we're going to go to the. Does anybody have anything they want to say?
One thing on the Veiled Beauty is I have a very, very, very rare photograph from that film, and everyone's identified on the back of the photograph. So if you want to get that to me, I can line up the people with the picture.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what's on our schedule now. My screen is okay. Let's talk about just some of the directors. We're moving to directors now. Not, I know why it takes 2 or 3 people to do one of these things here. And this is probably my favorite Vitagraph director. I thought one of the best was George Baker.
Oh, yeah.
And he directed some of John Bunny's last films that they got much better there in 1914.
Yeah.
It was interesting when, Tony, you and I started to compare notes on our favorite Bunny films, and I think each one was directed by George D. Baker.
Yeah, exactly. Tango Tangoist and all those.
Oh, yeah.
Those are all George D. Baker.
Who directed Dr. Bridget?
Do what?
Was that Baker? Dr. Bridget?
Dr. Bridget was kind of wasn't Dr. Bridget like 1912 or 1911? Was that an early one? I'll have to look it up.
I can't remember. It's got Harry T. Morey and Flora Finch and Charles Eldridge in it. And Bunny plays the cook in drag. So he's very funny. That one's available on the iFilm Museum's website, YouTube site.
They IMDb again. They credit Frederick Thompson with that.
Okay.
With Dr. Bridget, but Bunny in drag. I think he was in drag in half of his films.
Yeah.
They constantly, when they ran out of ideas, let's put Bunny in a woman. Let's dress him like a woman.
He's perfect. I mean, he looks like such an Irish cook when he's in drag. I mean, he doesn't have to do much.
And here's another rare shot of George Baker here that we identified. We're pretty sure it's the same George Baker, just younger. And there's another picture of him there. And here's another important.
Lawrence Trimble.
Lawrence Trimble.
Yeah.
Beautiful shot.
Yeah, so he was, I guess, most known for, directing, but Gene the Vitagraph dog, too.
Yeah, that was his dog, too.
And there they are together.
I found an item recently where he talks about he had been a journalist and he was supposed to write some pieces on the studio for a paper. So he was taking a tour of the studio and he came across somebody in the scenario department that had a script that they liked, but it called for a dog to do all kinds of business in it. And the scenario guy said, it's impossible to find a dog who can do this. And Trimble was there with Gene. And he said, I can do it. You know, I can get a dog to do that. So they gave him a chance. You know, they gave him enough rope to hang himself. And it worked out very well. Gene was able to do it. And slowly they started using Jean, and Trimble was sort of directing her, but then eventually he started directing the whole films himself.
Jumping back on a thing, John Marsalis says the Mill Girl exists at MoMA and BFI.
Which one?
The Mill Girl.
Ah,
Jumping back 10 minutes. I'm just now seeing his comment.
oh, that's the one Eileen had seen.
Do what?
That's the one Eileen Bowser had seen.
Yeah, that she wrote about, so it makes sense that it's at MoMA. And then this is I
William
forget his
V.
name, Ranus, R-A-N-O-U-S.
William V. Ranus.
William V. Ranus, yes.
Yeah.
So
You
and
know,
I think
yeah.
he left pretty early.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen much that he's directed.
Marion pronounced his name Ranus, and she said he was the first professional stage director that they hired at Vitagraph. So
Now, hold up. When you say Miriam, you're talking about Blackton's daughter?
yes, Marion Blackton Trimble, who was later Mrs. Larry Trimble, and his name came up because she said you so rarely hear about him. I think that one of the big problems was that he passed away so early on, and and also was not credited for a lot of the films that he made.
Right.
But it's wonderful to have him recognized here in our little Zoom.
Yeah. I've got another picture I'll show you from a newspaper clip because it's hard to his pictures. It's hard to find pictures.
Oh, very hard.
Here's another Teff Johnson.
He was quite a character. I have a Teff Johnson story we can talk about later.
He did those Sonny Jim, or he did those films with Bobby Connolly.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the whole story of he really messed himself up when he became those became so popular. He thought he'd go out on his own and have his own company. Big mistake.
Save that for later, along with the
in those Bobby Connolly films, he usually played the father.
Yeah.
Along with the Ned Finley story, Sam.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I don't know if I want to get into that.
I never heard Sam get so. Oh, he was. You just think Ned Finley was sitting next to him. He does not like. I did find this, and it was a small picture of. It's here, William V. Ranus, motion picture director and Vitagraph director, The Fountain of Youth, produced in 1905.
Wow.
I did find this newspaper article, so there's not much.
Well, part of the problem is the directors weren't credited in those early films.
So that's about the only other one that I could find there. Now let's see. Van Dyke Brook was actor.
He was an excellent director.
Yeah.
And he was kind of an early champion of Norma Talmadge, because he used her a lot in his films, like Father's Hat Band and Mrs. Henry Hawkins and The Matchmaker. MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, has this wonderful film called The Matchmaker, where he's an older widower and he helps these young couples who are having, relationship problems. One's Norma and her boyfriend, and Constance Talmadge and her boyfriend, and he sort of helps them work out their problems. But it's a little bittersweet because at the very end, the kids go off in couples together and he's left alone. His wife has passed away. So it's kind of touching. It's a really good little film. He's a good director.
And Sam's favorite, Ned Finley.
Oh. Well, he's very good in Goodness Gracious because he's the villain.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good villain.
He sure is.
Yeah, and also somebody on IMDb also posted his certificate of death,
No.
which is the strychnine. This guy had some mental. He definitely had some problems. He lost his hand. He attempted suicide. It's kind of just an ugly story with poor Ned. He was missing. Vitagraph put out a thing. This Ned Finley's missing. If you see him, contact us. And